So for step 11, checking the RC equipment. Well, there's only one real main reason that we do this step, and that's to make sure that the servo itself is in neutral before we install all of the servo saver pieces, because if it's not, this will shift once you connect everything. So we need to do that. So I'm going to set this up so that we can. But here are all of the pieces that we need: the screws, the ball connector nut, and our high torque servo saver metal pieces. And there, of course, is our TSU06 low profile servo that we're going to be installing in this. Now, one interesting thing that I will point out, if you remember in step 1, they showed battery and the LiPo and using a Dean plug. Well, with step 11, they're showing a regular battery pack with the regular Tamiya connectors. So again, you know, at the beginning, they're showing you sort of the LiPo packs. Well, here they're showing you the same step, but with a Tamiya regular pack, which is kind of interesting. So I don't know if that's an error or whether they're just showing you can use whatever battery pack you want. Anyway, I'll set this up and let's put this servo into neutral. Okay, so here we go. We've got our radio here, we've got our battery connected, we've got our receiver, and we've got the Hobbywing 1060 speed controller, which I'll be using, and it's all getting plugged into our low profile TSU06 Tamiya servo. Now, I'm going to turn the transmitter on, and I'm going to show you that when I flick this switch, you should see this move to the correct position. And it may already be in the correct position, but it'll confirm that it's in neutral before we go on to anything else. So I'm going to flick the switch and you should see this move. Bingo. So you heard it move. So I'm going to do it again, but you won't see it move as much, if at all, now. So here we go. Yeah, it's done. So it is now fully in neutral, so we can continue on with this step. But again, that's the whole point of this step, because you notice it moved quite a bit that first round, and then now it's not moving at all. So we know we can continue. So I'll get rid of all of this, unhook everything, and we'll start putting on the servo saver. So first off, let's work with the T7 piece because we have a couple of things to add to it. So you can see here, this is going to be facing the servo saver, just the way that's shaped. So this side is the flat. We're going to grab our screw, the MA2, grab our ball connector nut, and slide this on. Now this is probably one of the more simple ways I've seen these ball connectors attached. And if you want to make sure that that's on, I can attach that to our box wrench and use the screwdriver to tighten that on. Now I'm not tightening this on very much because it's already a pretty solid fit. I just wanted to make sure that it was tight. But there we go, there's that piece. Now you can see we've got our Q3. Now the Q3 or Q1 is because of whether this is a Tamiya servo, etc. Well, you can see here on the back, this is the Futaba Tamiya, which is the correct one. So we need to put on our servo saver. So we've got our MB18 and there are two of those. So you can see that the way to put these on is from the back, get it into the right place and push. And you can see that it fits just like that. So once you have the first one on, the way to get this one on is to make sure that it comes in on the back side and then slide it over. Now this isn't quite as easy, but you should be able to push and slide it over. There we go. There we are. And you can see that it is now sitting on either side, right, of that top plastic piece. So it is on correctly, and now you have both of those there. So you're just going to have to try and from the back side, squeeze it on with your thumb and just keep pushing it around, because it will expand and go over that first metal ring. So then we've got the last one, which was the MB-17. This is the bigger one. So again, we've got to do the same thing. We're going to slide it from behind. And it should pop on over top, which it has. You can see how that's sitting there. So now all 3 metal rings are on that servo saver. So now that that is done, we grab this piece here, and you can see that the back side, how that's got to sit, it's got to sit inside there, basically, where the other servo saver part was. And we're going to push this together. There we go. And you can see how it is sitting inside, in between the rings. And then we've got this piece here, the Q4, that's going to sit over top of that. And then we have our MB6 screw that's going to go into there and into our servo. Now you can see with the servo, the wire is coming from that side. Our actual servo motor is on that left side, so it's going to fit in there like that. Now before I do that, the one thing I will show you is that, you know, this MB6 screw, which is a little tapping screw, is because this is a Tamiya servo, and if I'd used a normal Futaba servo, which I usually do, it would have been the same screw. But you can see down here that depending on your servo, depending on what screw came inside the servo, you will need to pick a different one. But because this was set up as a Tamiya kit, and they're trying to show you to use the Tamiya screws, we know that that's this one. So what are we left with? You can see that this needs to sit up and down. So if I put this onto the horn, or the gear, let's see how that's not quite right. We want to try and keep this as level as possible. You can see that if I move to the right, it's way off. I need to sit it on the motor. Well, that's as close as it can be, because you see how the inside of the servo horn piece, and then you've got your gears. Well, that's got to sit correctly, and it's looking like if I sit it this way, it's sitting too far to the right. If I sit it that way, it's a little to the left, but it's better. So that's where we're gonna go. So I'll put this on, and you can see that we're gonna have to do some fine tuning once everything is connected to adjust the trim to get this to be sitting up and down. Anyway, we know that's correct. So I'm gonna take the screwdriver, and I'm going to screw this in. Now, one of the other things I'm going to do is I'm going to use my thumb to hold it back, because what's going to happen is as this tightens down, it's going to want to pull. And I don't want the servo to move, because then it's out of neutral. There we go. So there is our servo with our servo saver, and again with the trim, we're going to make sure that this is perfectly perpendicular to the servo itself. So that means that step 11 is complete. So we can now move on to step 12 and start working on the steering linkage.